Welcome, everyone, to Unity Live. We're so grateful that you're here. We have such an exciting show this evening. It is amazing to have Penney Peirce joining us. We are all in for such a treat. And before we get started, just wanted to let people know to use the chat. If you have questions, feel free to share them in the chat. Towards the second half of this evening, we'll be opening it up for questions.
Yes, we're so excited. We're with a wise, beautiful goddess here this evening, and we cannot wait to hear all of her expansive wisdom and sharing.
Oh, you're talking about me?
Well, who else would we be talking about? Yes.
But before we introduce Penney, I think we're going to start with a blessing of the tea.
Yes. So we have a delicious summer blend of tea. And you can read more about it on the website. But really, I was guided to connect with this blend as it's very healing, and it brings forth a lot of ability for our body to regulate its temperature during these hot summer months, as well as support our immune system. And so hopefully, if you have a chance to try the blend, you can let us know what you think of it. So whether you have water with you that you'd like to bless and program, or you're sipping on some tea additionally, I'm going to bring in a little transmission to attune our cellular water and the tea and water that we are drinking as well. Okay. So closing our eyes for a moment, connecting our hearts, connecting in this beautiful community of beings, and allowing ourselves to just really drop into the present moment, drop into our hearts. Feeling the light, feeling this beautiful frequency of Divine Mother's womb of all creation, flowing down and around and over each and every one of us in this now moment. Aya sukusani andiariase, aya twariatariasani, ushta akaru saniani, ara tukrusaniani, andiaosu tuaniariatukisi, aru tusa aniundu, iandaria, asataria sukuriasaniani ari, unduriasa tarshani, akusiatiashanianu, aliata ishokushani. Unda aria sukushani, aturi aliandu kusha, aliatulu aliatari, adia untush anya a uduta ash ekuriasani. Pouring these beautiful diamond frequencies down and through each and every one of us, connecting with our cellular water, connecting with our DNA, and bringing us into the greatest and highest expression of our divinity in this now moment, bringing forth and planting the seeds of these diamond frequencies of light. Aliulia sani ushokuaria sani, ayake akuishinia. Tusa kuani ayaya. Ae ke ku aenia. O kuesi. Uniania kaeshe. Ae ke akuasa. Uniaria aike usu. Anieni. Coming back into our hearts now. Grounding ourselves into our bodies, grounding ourselves into our hearts. And so it is, and so it is, and so it is. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
That was so beautiful. Thank
It's
you so much,
gorgeous.
Brooklyn. And I
Just
have to
beautiful.
say, in full transparency, it's a little bit difficult to be fully in the present moment with, so much tech difficulties going on. So thank you for bringing us back to the present moment. And it is just such an honor to be connected with you, Penny, and for all of you joining us. It is just such a treat. And so I wanted to take a moment to introduce Penny. I became connected with Penny's work about 4 years ago. I had the honor of interviewing her, and like many of us who are, familiar with her work, it is life changing and truly transformative. And I think the wonderful part about Penny's books is that they really meet us where we are in our journey. And no matter how many times I go back to her work, it I'm always rediscovering, and it's meeting me at a unique place. And so for those of you who aren't familiar with Penny's work, you're in for quite a treat. Penny is a clairvoyant empath, visionary, and author. She's for over 30 years, has taught and counseled thousands of people internationally in all walks of life. She is one of the early pioneers in the intuition development movement, specializing in expanded perception, inner energy dynamics, dream work, and transformation, which is all what we're going to dive in and talk about tonight. Welcome, Penny. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for inviting me. It's good to be back and connect with you again.
Yeah. Transparency is one of our absolute favorite frequencies and words. And so we're really excited to dive into that conversation. But I think a great starting point is to really talk about the transformation process from your perspective. You've written so much about it. So maybe if you could share with us, what that journey is like.
Yeah, I think it's the key thing we need to understand about what's happening today and all the chaos that we're finding ourselves in. But I'm sure you're aware that the acceleration has been happening on the planet for quite a few years, where the energy seems to be speeding up. And one of the ways I noticed it was that I would get repercussions from something I had done, like almost immediately. Where, like, if I gossiped about somebody, somebody would gossip about me. It was like that kind of thing. But it just kept going faster and faster and faster. And I realized that at a certain point, that our actual perception was speeding up, that we're moving out of a certain way of being and seeing the world into a whole new way of perceiving the world, from a linear way, which is, past, present, future, beginning, middle, end, everything's in a line. We have cause and effect thinking, and that's just so normal. That's what we do. We think, even when people say, oh, you have to raise your frequency. Well, it looks like a thermometer, where the red stuff is going up in a line, but that's not it, So, but the acceleration is causing everything in the body to increase in frequency, as well as everything in the physical plane to increase in frequency. It's all connected. And as that happens, we go through all kinds of symptoms of overheating or getting rashes or getting irritable and just uncomfortable, because we're being forced to jump out of our comfort zone into a higher level of functioning. And part of what that does is that it increases the physical body's vibration, which causes more heat and faster energy frequencies, but also the emotional body increases its vibration, and the mental increases its vibration. So we start to have a freeing up of the subconscious stuff that used to be suppressed. If you were abused, 20 years ago, you forgot about it, or you didn't want to think about it. But now it's just bubbling up to the surface. Nothing can be hidden. So we are in a a period right now where a lot of that old fear-based stuff of our traumas and dramas is coming up into the conscious mind. And it's causing all kinds of waves and chaos of polarization and ups and downs. And, you know, I think the big polarization we're seeing in politics and everywhere, you know, the hateful people and the loving people, and you know, it's all part of this. And until we can, the energy goes up high enough that we really move beyond polarization into unity. Yeah, and
Hey.
and we can all speak that beautiful language that you were speaking. Um, anyway, so transformation to me is the act of moving out of that slow linear perception, which is what the information age depends upon. Bit by bit, bite by bite. It's actually almost our way of processing is too slow anymore to handle all the information that we have. So we're shifting from the left brain to the right brain, where everything exists all at once in a unified field. And we have direct knowing, and we have intuition. So I'm calling it the intuition age, that we're shifting out of information age, which is mental, into intuition age, which is more spiritual. And we're in a kind of a bridge time right now between the two, where you know we're sort of waffling back and forth and getting little glimpses of the new version, and then falling backwards and backsliding, and then we correct ourselves and we get a new lesson and clear ourselves. But the whole idea here, especially for those of us on a spiritual path, is that we need to clear our clutter. That's what I call it anyway. You know, it's all the fear-based thinking, the old beliefs, the ideas of scarcity and negativity that we got culturally from, you know, generations.
Yep.
And as we clear that, we find out that actually we are the soul, and we are here in the body, and spirit is inside matter. It's not out there in heaven. You know, it's all already has always been inside form. And so we're shifting our identity from being I am my left brain or I am my body, to I am the soul, and I have a body, you know, but I don't have a soul. I am a soul. And this is a really major shift that is the key transformation. And it's not just a change. You know, change is where you just rearrange objects on a table and you still have the same objects on the table.
Right.
Transformation is a whole different, you know, uh, dimension, actually.
I
Life
love that.
functions differently.
Yeah,
But
you know, almost, you know, best described as alchemizing, right? When you
yeah,
actually take something and shift it and transform it and transmute it and bring it into something completely anew at a higher frequency, a higher vibration. I love the way that you're bringing all of this in because it's so resonates on so many levels and it's so expansive and it's also it's like a feather that's lightly, you know, falling into and assisting in the embedding of all of this beautiful wisdom in a soft and approachable way, and I love that. Thank you.
thank you. Yeah. Well, you know, part of it, when you think about the alchemy of it, like you were saying, I always think of it like if you took a dot, a point, and you put a whole bunch of them together, you would get a line. That's a dimensional shift. If you put a whole bunch of lines together in a row, you get a plane. That's a dimensional shift. You take a bunch of planes and stack them up together, you get a cube. That's a dimensional shift. Well, now what? You know, we've been in the cube, 3D, you know, for a long time. And we're, you know, that's all we think there is.
Yeah.
Except that the next level is spherical and holographic, and it is a whole different way of perceiving reality and also the self. That's transformation.
Ap- Absolutely. And I'm so glad you said that, Penny, because I have to say, for the last linear year, right? More and more and more as things are coming through, whether it's in, a transmission or on a one-on-one, conversation and connection with somebody, bringing through things, different downloads, everything is beginning to show up even more and more so in that quantum holographic format. Like everything is being shown in a grid system within a grid system within a grid system within a grid system. And I'm marveling at the intricacies. And thank goodness, higher self, source, ourselves as source, are bringing it in such a way that it can be digested. Because, I can see why someone like Eckhart Tolle, spent so many years on a park bench, because I'm certain that he had privy to this
Right.
possibly all at once. And
He
wow,
cleared
it's
out all his
so
clutter.
egoically mind blowing. And yes.
Right. Right. Yeah. And, so we were going to talk about transparency tonight, but transformation and transparency are so tied together that because when you clear all the fear away and you just dissolve it away, really, because it's not really true anymore, when you identify as the soul and you think about fear, the soul doesn't even know what that is. It doesn't exist in the spiritual realm. It's a kind of artifact of three-dimensional reality. And so when you go in and you start to feel yourself as the soul and understand that this world can function according to spiritual universal laws and principles, and it actually does, you know uh, and that we do too, that life can be smooth and frictionless, and everything we thought was so awful is just the opposite of the way it is, you know uh, and I think this is what's happening to us. We still go back into the difficulty thinking, though, thinking and stall ourselves in it. But really, if you let it go, you're just plain and simple and clear, and there's nothing like no fog, right? No filters around you that's um, dumbing down the energy of the soul coming through and expressing through your personality, and then you're transparent.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Penny, you talk about uh, an opaque reality, and
Yeah.
really this process of going from opaque to transparent,
Yeah.
and this liminal space that is, somewhat like the bridge time. I'm imagining is like this vacillation between those instances of all knowing, all feeling, and then, going back into the left brain. Can you explain that process?
Okay. Well, the opaque reality to me is like the opposite of the transparent reality, right? I mean, it's like what we're used to living in, where you pretend that you can't see through to anybody's inner self. You can't you can't tell when they're lying. You can't see what's really real. We all pretend that, like we just can't see. And we also pretend that nobody can see us, like we're invisible or coated over with some kind of thickness. And we just buy into this. But the more you clear yourself, the more you see through anything. Because when you're transparent, the world becomes transparent, which is the really funny thing. It's an ironic thing.
Yeah.
And part
That's
of part of that is allowing yourself to be seen,
absolutely.
right? And
I
when you
couldn't,
can
oh, sorry.
when you see through, you also can be seen, or when you be seen, you can see through. It's the same, you know. So it doesn't matter where you start. Both of those things will happen simultaneously to the degree that you do it, right?
I've noticed that so much as of recently, because the more and more we come out of hiding, right? The more we shine the light in and allow ourselves, to your point, to be seen. It's like the threads, everything becomes so crystal clear that you can truly start to see that individual threads of what's playing out within any given situation or
Mm-hmm.
person. And, and I love the fact that you brought that up because, and in the way you have brought it up too, because I've been exploring that and I haven't necessarily put it in the context of, this greater intention and focus on transparency and that. But of course, it's like a duh aha moment, which I have of, in a plethora of on a daily basis. And it's true. It's true. And I love how that works that, regardless of whether the other person that we're in exchange with is choosing in this now moment to intend for transparency or offer that, in our transparency, we can see more clearly. And for me, it really assists in answering that deep rooted prayer and, and desire to have that greater depth of compassion for all beings, right? And when we can see clearly through the fog, through the opaqueness, then it's like, oh, right, now we can see where those things are coming from within this
Yeah.
person, and it invokes a greater heart expansion and opening.
It's so amazing, this mutuality of these things, and I think part of it is that if you let yourself be vulnerable and be seen, even with your clutter, or with your embarrassing stuff, we all have it, right? I mean, you can't be alive and not have some kind of goop on you, And so if you let yourself be seen and don't be embarrassed about it and don't get all tight and frozen around it, the other person's not going to think that it's so negative. And then they're going to realize, well, my stuff isn't so negative either. If she doesn't think hers is, then mine isn't either. It makes it that much easier to let it go, you
Yeah.
know? So uh, it's an act of kindness, really, isn't it? To let yourself be seen.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's one of the ultimate acts of self-love, and the guides and collectives that come through really, honing in on transparency are always sharing, there's so much freedom and sovereignty. But to your point, with that, and even possibly before getting into those, juicy layers of freedom and sovereignty, is that sense of self-love, is that deep awareness that there's truly nothing about ourselves that's ever taken place throughout any space and time, right? That has ever unworthy of embrace and, shining the light on and unconditional love.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love this. I am so excited right now that you're here.
Well, I do want to get to liminal space, but I also just wanted to say that I think that when we do this clearing or simplification, or it's kind of like I like to think of it as humility without a negative twist on that word. It's just your simple self. You're honest in the moment. This is what I am now. This is what I am now. This is what I am now. But when you can do that, um, and then you realize that you are the soul right now, making this body and making this life. It's not that you love yourself more, it's more that you realize that you just are made of love, and so everything is made of love. And why do I don't even need any more love? I mean, I don't need to receive love. I just want to play in it with everybody, do you know? And it's that we have this linear thing again about love. Give it and did you give enough so that they'll feel okay, or did they give you enough so that you'll feel okay? And it's like this horizontal giving thing, where the new way to feel it is the spherical way, which is in this present moment, in this big ball of this moment. It is full of love, and everything is in the ball with me, and it's made of love. And and there's nothing really but that. But of course, there are people who can't see that yet, and that's where we have to hold steady in the knowledge of being love, if that makes sense.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love that so much. And you talk a lot about, home frequency
Hmm.
and being able to attune to that in order to really create from our innate gifts. If you're not familiar with that, what are some ways to shift into the home frequency?
Yeah. Well, to me, the home frequency is the vibration of the soul in the body. When you are being that really true, simple self, and it's like when you were a child and you just were happy playing with your dog or making a finger painting, or you were just full of yourself and laughing and joyful or whatever. But we all have our way of noticing when we're in that state. You can get lost in the moment. You can just, like still play with your dog, or whatever, a cat or whatever. But but it's that state of where you really, really like yourself and everybody, and you're just feeling so natural and things are flowing and you're, so deeply comfortable. So I find a way to get into it is, um, well, you can talk yourself through it by imagining scenarios, for instance, like maybe it is looking in a baby's eyes when they're giggling, or, playing with puppies and letting them jump all over you, or walking on the beach or climbing a mountain, whatever you like to do. One woman told me her home frequency, she was a dancer and she felt like hers did this. Excuse me, my camera just went out of focus. That's me. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But we all have our different ways. If I symbolize mine, it kind of feels like cheerfulness, or a pink Angora sweater, or melting butter or something. Like you could think of the way it feels to you. And once you get a little feeling state in your mind, like a snapshot, you can kind of slide back into it when you've gotten in a bad mood
Mhm.
and go back to feel the way that you really like to feel. So let me go back and talk about liminal space there for a minute, because I think liminal space occurs at the end of a cycle of creativity or creation. You've gone from being and having your vision in the higher realms, and you're coming down toward the mind and you're getting a vision of it, and you're starting to make a concept of it, and you're starting to define it with your left brain, and then you're getting excited in your reptile brain and getting all motivated, and then it shifts into action in the physical plane, and your body goes out and does all the tasks and you accomplish, and that's all fun too. And then you get your final physical results. So it goes, spirit, mind, body, or be, do, have. And when you get to the end and you have results, well, then the left brain panics because it doesn't want to let go of that, because it's nice and defined now and secure. But if you let go, you're going to go into the void, and then that's going to be totally frightening and you might be annihilated. So what it does is it turns around, it goes backwards to more mental, more doing, more thinking, do it better, do it differently, whatever. And it will go back and forth between doing and having, and doing and having, and doing and having, which is really, it's avoidance, but it's also the addictive process. Anything to avoid actually letting go. And when you let go, you don't go into the void, you go into the imaginal realm, the fullness. But it looks like the void when you're at the end of a cycle of creation, because you're on empty. You've used up the energy that you had. But as soon as you relax and just be, you're back at being. So liminal space is that active transition between the time where you have results and it's wonderful, and then you relax and let go. So this is the caterpillar in the pupa, turning into the butterfly. But really what happens in there is that all the particles melt and it goes into like a liquid suspension, and then they reformulate into this new form and they come out as the butterfly. Well, liminal space it means threshold, and we don't know how to use it very well. We don't like it. It's scary, you know, but it's actually deeply pleasant, when you relax and just say, look what I just accomplished. Wasn't that fun? My body had a good time. I had a good time. I did what I said I was going to do. And now I'm just going to relax a minute. Like the fruit has to have time to get ripe and fall off the tree. and then you allow it to slide back into being again. And now you get repatterned, you get new energy, new ideas, and the imaginal realm comes in, and you, the soul, will reformulate a new cycle of creativity, and you'll start again. But it's a waiting period, but it's in the present moment entirely. And so it's
Yeah.
incredibly rejuvenating, but we don't know how to do it very well yet. And I think that's something we need to learn.
I love how you describe that. And it's something that I actually experienced so deeply about 2 years ago. I had a huge shift in my life and my business. And it was also turned out to be a 9 year in numerology.
Uh,
So it was
yeah,
definitely the end of a cycle.
yeah,
And it was that void space of just nothingness and really not knowing what was next. And it was,
right,
I honestly did have sort of a panic reaction to that
right,
of, you know,
right.
but then gradually surrendering into that, I was able to feel the possibilities that emerged. And I
That's
think
it.
I love how you describe it as sort of a caterpillar going into a cocoon and dissolving itself, because that's
Hmm.
literally
Yeah,
the experience, how it feels. But I
yeah,
think if we can begin to get used to that feeling, it
yeah.
can
It's
become
like
fun to start to create from that place.
we do it by creating spaciousness around us, for one thing. Then we become porous in ourselves. We don't hold ourselves together so tightly and have all these, we just oh, let the cells open up and let there be space in between the cells and let energy and light flow through and, ah, and and uh, uh, and then what happens is things bubble up, right? Oh, I'm going to read that article online about so and so. I was always wanting to do that. And then that'll lead to, oh, I'll call this person. And then, now you're on a new flow, right? And things start to happen. Uh,
Yeah.
so
How do you feel like when things start to lose their interest for you? What is the, feeling for you in terms of like how you um, react to that, or open up to different new possibilities?
I think part of working with intuition is to learn to discriminate very subtle states of being. Like sometimes when that happens, I'm aware that timing is off right now, that something I thought I was going to do, it's not ready yet. Or I have to have a few more conversations or wait for a little longer for the like a book subject, for instance, to be timely enough for the audience out there. Or sometimes it's like I'm supposed to meet somebody and they're not here yet. Or there's another state where I'm just actually finished with that part. And often when you're finished with something, your mind has already started, you've already started feeling into the next part of the cycle. And you want to be there already, but you can't be because you haven't gone through liminal space. So you have to be patient and let the process take its time with you. And be observant and enjoy your time and let the insights come and get ripe. And then the new thing happens. But you cannot use willpower at that point and try to make something new happen before it's time. So I
Yeah.
oh, we all get caught in this. you
Totally.
know?
I love to, it's perfect as you're expressing this and talking about. I feel like it can apply to so many things, right? And so many aspects of our spiritual expansion and integration is what I keep hearing. It's like that integration time as well, right? I mean, it could be viewed as that. And I'm thinking of like, whether it's a transmission that I'm, participating in or perhaps even leading or any experience, right? Where there's a big wave of creator energy coming through or creative energy coming through, or,
Mhm.
it's like there's such a sweet spot to just bathe in that for a period of time and let it, to your point, let it speak to you, right? Without the felt sense of doing anything with it other than just kind of being in it and allowing it. And I feel like it, it really goes further to expand on what you're saying about, transparency too, and the actual shifting, because, when we can just allow it to happen, we don't contract, we don't try to manipulate it, or, do anything further from the mind state, and we just kind of allow ourselves to settle in into that heart space and into that being space. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a beautiful reminder, because everything's moving so fast right now, right? And so
Right.
creating those pauses and creating that space, I think it probably is more important than ever right now.
Yeah, I agree. And things are moving fast, but that's just the energy of the left brain that we're getting caught up in some ways. Because the actual high frequency of the planet is actually very smooth. It's not jangly. We're jangly when we're resisting adapting ourselves to the higher frequency. Right? When you just let go, your body will do it.
Yeah.
If you try to hang on to the old way, you're going to disturb yourself tremendously. So, um, you know, part of yeah, liminal space, part of the spaciousness, part of that kind of making a moment for yourself whenever you can remember to do it is just to drop. I call it stop and drop. You just get in your body, breathe, feel the space around you. And I always go, well, nature's working. you know, Life is working. It's all fine. And then I can settle in. So,
Penny, I would love to hear a little bit more about what you share about vertical versus horizontal transparency, and how
mhm.
that plays into everything that you're sharing.
Yes, yes. I realized when I first started writing the book that everybody thinks that transparency means, transparency about information. The government's not being transparent, this corporation's not being transparent, that they're lying to us. That's horizontal because that's in the physical world and it's in the mind kind of that way. But vertical transparency is that of becoming the soul and clearing everything out of your field so that you become the soul and then you can be seen and see through. And when you do that, you're honest, you're authentic. You don't have to worry about lying because why bother? You don't need to anymore. And it's amazing. The morality changes effortlessly when you become transparent. You don't have to have rules because you realize the soul doesn't need any of that stuff because it's already working. It's in harmony. It doesn't indulge in that kind of thing. And it really reads, if you're the soul, you see other people as souls.
Yeah.
Precisely. That's beautiful.
Penny, you and Jenny Blake did a wonderful podcast episode on, why do we hesitate to be much more of ourselves? And I
Oh,
thought it was
yeah.
such a great conversation. And it's interesting just how much of an effect it has that we have on all other souls, because we're so deeply interconnected, and our ability
Yes.
to really be transparent and to be vulnerable has an impact on every other being.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, to to be that much more of yourself, to own the fact that, yeah, I got wounded just like everybody else, but do I want to keep being wounded? Not really. It's boring. I'm gonna. I don't want to live in that suppressed fashion. So I'm gonna dissolve that. I'm gonna let all that go. Because when you place attention on those things, you keep them real and you hold them to yourself, and then you identify with them. You become those beliefs and ideas, and uh, and when you don't hold them, like you know, abuse, any abuse I had, do I own it? Am I the only one? No, it's a human thing. it could, did I just, and then when I start letting it go, here's what happens. It's like, I can't remember if that actually happened to me. And I think, wait, did somebody tell me about that? Was it somebody else that told me that? And then, it's like, then it kind of goes, well, everybody has it. It's a human thing. All right, well, let's move on. That's where I've gotten to, kind of through
Yeah.
boredom.
And I think also, connecting with the childlike frequency of joy and bringing that
Exactly.
in in
Right.
a greater degree.
Yes. I
Um,
think
you
I think
know,
joy
when
is the new teacher. It really is.
I was in a previous life in corporate America, we had this leadership exercise, and we were to pick three adjectives which we wanted to embody. And one of the adjectives that I chose was vulnerability. And at the time, it was very difficult for me to express that vulnerability, but it was something that I focused on, and just
Yeah.
it was an intention of how can I be more vulnerable in this moment.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I think now, maybe just because I feel surrounded by, you know, people that are very intuitive and psychic, which we all are, but have cleared a lot of the clutter. I just kind of assume that everybody senses and feels and knows everything, you know.
Well, yeah, but in the older model, if you're invulnerable and not allowing yourself to be vulnerable, then if somebody else is vulnerable around you, they're not in agreement with you, and therefore they're dangerous. And so then you have to attack them or get rid of them or something. You can't have them around because that self-protective mechanism, is that opaque reality is so dense. And I think that's what's happening today, is that people are being faced with this need, really, to let go of this dense, heavy stuff, when the actual energy of their soul it's all increasing, and then they're holding this armor around them, and it's painful to try to hold that contraction in place when the rest of everything is just, getting faster and faster, you know. So
Yeah.
I'm waiting to kind of see what's going to happen, as there's going to be a breaking point where that has to shift in a fairly big way. But
Yeah,
we'll see.
I feel you on that one. I can't, every day it feels like in just bigger waves and waves, the sort of galactic intel coming through about this, right? It's like
Hmm.
all the plasma frequency and the diamond codes and everything
Yep.
that's showering in and coming from all different systems. And it's like
Right.
you can run, but you won't get very far because it's
No,
coming from all angles.
well,
And
that
and
reality
once the
doesn't
light
really
has
exist
come
anymore.
through,
It,
it's
you're
game
right.
on.
Yeah, and it is the way you're using those words. I haven't used those words, but sorry, my camera, every time I move, it decides to refocus on something else to make me go out. Um, yeah, no, I like that. I work a lot with diamond light and merging with it and letting it dissolve things in my body, and diamond codes, that really feels right. And um, I do see it as intergalactic. A lot of the stuff is coming with the help of a lot of beings in those realms who are already in that frequency, so they're helping us. But yeah, so
Beautiful. Do we want to open it up to some questions from the audience?
Yes, one question that we received, Penny, is about dimensions and how you define them.
uh, well, I try to stay out of my left brain around that one, so I just call it the physical and non-physical. Because they can, I remember going to some kind of Eckankar thing, and they had like 32 dimensions or something, and I was like just totally overwhelmed, like could not get my head around it, and didn't want to. But in the non-physical realms, there are gazillions of frequencies that you could adjust yourself to and be in different kinds of consciousness states. So I don't know that, we visualize these dimensions as onion layers around a ball, and that's linear again. It's more like dots in a huge sphere, and you can go into any point and you'd be in a reality of any frequency, you know. So I don't see dimensions as linear at all.
What are you most excited about the time that we're in right now?
Well, I think COVID was actually pretty exciting in spite of this awfulness, um, because I think it really did give people a chance to go into liminal space and look at what's important to them and feel who they are a little bit more. And I'm actually very positive and very hopeful. I mean, not even hopeful. I already like am in the future, looking back at what's happening now and seeing the strategy of how these things are unfolding, so that we will have a chance to evolve as fast as possible. And I see it all working out in a really interesting way. So there's not a tragedy, and I anyway, I think it's all working out. So I'm excited about. I never stop being excited about transformation. It's like the coolest thing ever. It's like it's magic. You know.
Yeah, it's a great area to focus your life work around because there's just so much and it is so
Yeah.
exciting. One question that we received from Susan is, what is diamond light? How do you explain how you merge with it and clear stuff in your body?
I think of diamond light. If you can imagine what it's like to be inside a diamond and make it kind of liquid. It's like this super high, glossy, intense purity. It's a state of absolute clarity and purity where you have total memory and knowledge of the spiritual realm. And there is no fear there. There are no blockages. There's no even need to have logic. It's just all is known. So I always imagine that I have my diamond light body standing behind me, and she looks like me except she's got no blockages. And she puts her hands on my shoulders, her energy hands, and I attune to that frequency. And then she steps inside or slides in and matches up with me, part for part. So her diamond light brain goes into my physical brain, her diamond light heart into my physical heart, my diamond light blood, diamond light bone marrow, whatever, and I scan through and I imagine it all having its inner blueprint now as the soul's diamond light, which knows exactly what it's doing. And I just go through until everything is getting that inner blueprint, which is kind of like the mother coming in and saying, "It's okay, honey. You're not alone. Here I am." And it's almost like the cells relax because now they know what they're supposed to do, and everything kind of falls into its natural harmony again. And then, I realize, oh wait, I am the diamond light body, and I'm here now, and I know what I'm doing, and I, just relax. It's a quick way to shift yourself into your soul consciousness, I think.
Of that. Any other rituals or practices, especially around your writing?
Or in my writing. Uh, well, I always ask for an attunement with the writers in the sky, I call them, but a soul group of beings that are on my wavelength, that have an understanding of knowledge at a particular frequency that is kind of, it's a little bit scientific, and it's kind of intergalactic. It's a higher kind of thing. And then to help me translate that down into human understanding, into practical, uh, you know, doable things. And then I ask for it to be beautiful, like poetry, as much as I can, so that I'll hear music with it, or and that it'll, and if it's not that way, I'll notice that sentence and go back and and get the right rhythm for it, or syncopation for it, or whatever. So I really pay a lot of attention to the craft.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I've never heard anyone explain their process or their connection like that. It's really beautiful. And I love the music, the sound, and the, you know, really determining if that's in full flow of what's, you know, what you're wanting to be the vehicle to bring through. That's, I
Yeah.
love that. Thank you.
I want uh, the words to carry the actual experience of what they're saying, the energy of what they're saying, so it has an extra dimension to it.
Love that. One question from Kayla.
Mhm.
Penny, if you've been doing this for 30 plus years, what was it like to be one of the few talking about this back then? And who are some of the spiritual teachers that made the biggest impression on you?
Yes, of course, I started when I was 6. So, no. um, let's see. In the early years, I was very much connected up with a lot of trance mediums who were channeling entities, and that's stuff in the early New Age thing, and shamans and all this stuff. Um, and I thought I was supposed to be that way too, but I could never get out of my way enough to get somebody speaking through me, So, then, uh, I finally, I felt very invisible. And I finally went to this healer, and I said, well, how can I get an entity and be a trance medium? He says, why would you want to do that? You're already beyond that. And I said, what? He said, no, you're already connected. You don't need that kind of stuff. And that was a help, but I still wasn't, popular at that time for doing it that way. So I just had to keep on, you know, working with, like, I never had an entity that I could see a being. I always had this council that was up above my head, that I would go up and sit around this round table with this council, and I had a chair there, and we would all do telepathic. I'd have a question, we'd put it in the center of the table, and then everybody would tune in and answer it, and then we'd get one answer, it would come back to everybody. And uh, and that's always the way I did it. It was more like a merging with groups rather than single beings. Um, it took a while, uh, many years, to just keep on keeping on, really. And
So
teachers, I really loved Jane Roberts early on, and Edgar Casey, and a lot of the psychology people too, like Fritz Perls and so forth. And but I rarely read other people's books. After a certain point, I stopped reading other people's books.
how did you learn about and discover your gifts?
Again, it was a very gradual thing, because I was graphic designer and corporate art director and interior designer early in my career, which I think was good because it taught me a lot about pattern and harmony and you know that kind of thinking. Um, uh, and then I studied. I took clairvoyance classes, and I thought, I didn't know you could study this, but there it was. So we started, learning meditation and visualization and working with the chakras. And but as soon as I got into that class, it's like I knew what I was going to do. And I went home at noon from my work every day, and I meditated, and I balanced my chakras, and I took notes in a journal, and I was just totally dedicated to it. And it just grew, and things opened and opened, and then I would get more discoveries about, okay, this is the chakras are doing, this is happening, and oh, I see, this is about transformation now, and it just evolved.
I love that. That's wonderful to hear about that journey for you. I want to go back to something that you
Mhm.
said that I think is really important. You said at one point in time you felt very invisible, and we haven't touched on that, but could you share the difference in being and feeling invisible versus the experience of transparency?
Well, the way I write about it in the book is a little different than the way I was feeling. But I was saying, people used to think that they could take a magic potion and become invisible, like Harry Potter, in the cloak of invisibility, and that would make them really special. And they'd be like the gods who were invisible. They would be, how gods could appear and disappear. And, but that's not transparency. That was a magic trick. But I think that being invisible, the way I was feeling it, it's a function of clutter in a way. It's a function of feeling insecure or not as good as somebody else, or comparing yourself to someone else. And but then someone said to me once, Penny, it takes just as much skill to be visible as invisible. There are times when you want to be invisible, and you can, just do that by not radiating your aura so much, and just by being extremely quiet energetically. And then you can, expand your field and be very visible. And so it just, whatever you need, whatever suits your purposes, you can be either one. And then that really helped me a lot, you know.
As a double Leo, I can't imagine,
I know.
the invisible.
Yes. Well, I have a Pisces moon, so that's kind of partly
Oh, so do
makes
I.
me, yeah, sensitive.
Did you have, we having sound challenges?
Any other questions from the people?
A lot of feedback.
In one way or another, huh?
I think we've answered the majority of questions. If anybody else has a question that they'd like to ask Penny, please share it in the chat, or you can actually raise your hand.
In the back.
So there is one other question
Okay, good.
from Susan. I'm interested in what you said about addiction, about opening up and then going into the mind again. Do you have a suggestion about how to get through this?
Well, it goes back, when you go into the mind, you're going into the left brain, right? Where the left brain does not like change. It doesn't like insecurity. It basically lives in the past and repeats things that worked before in the present moment. And so often, addiction is because we're avoiding the unknown, avoiding feeling something from the subconscious or some of that stuff we've suppressed. And a part of it is, I think, like you were saying, acknowledging vulnerability and just saying we all have crazy stuff that's happened because we're around other wounded people. And it's not about who I am. It's not me. So there's a kind of a process of disengaging from that definition, which is in the left brain, of who you are, and getting a handle on thinking of yourself that way, and then getting bored with it, right? And and then substituting something else that's coming up from the soul, out of the spaciousness, that's new and more on target with your home frequency than addiction was. And you just kind of, I've always found with my addictions that I just have to say, well, this is just no longer part of my life, and really tell myself that over and over, and I'm not that interested in it. Like there are other things.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that approach to it, because it's fun and it's very empowering. And it's true, because if you stop, right, and get out of your thinking mind, your left side of your brain, and look at it, the whole reason why it's likely agitating you to begin with, or you have this inner knowing that it's like, you know, getting old and not working anymore, is because there, your soul part of you is bored with it, right? So it's, I love that. I love how you're saying, like, get in tune with what operating system is running the show with it, and then
Right.
jump ship from the left brain, and and get into the infinite creator self.
Yeah, yeah. And that's that liminal space. Be willing
Perfect.
to not do the thing. And then I think just be your simple self and see what's in there. You know, like wait. You might have to, do it a week or two, and deprive yourself so that you can be simple. And then you start to feel other ideas and other interests, and some of your like childlike joyful things start coming back, and it gives it room to surface. Otherwise the addiction keeps everything down,
Mhm.
keeps a lid on.
I love that so much. We're getting a lot of comments in the chat, and Penny, I'm not sure if you can see those, so I wanted to just
uh,
share. Um, I love the term simple self. That feels really empowering for me. Celeste shared, and let's see here. Kayla was asking about the books that are on the table, and same with Elisa. And here are just a few of the books that you've written, but would love for you to share if you have recommendations for people on where to start with books of yours in the transformation process.
Yeah, well, the first book is The Intuitive Way, which is a course on intuition development, and it's still really good. It's really classic. Um, so I like that one in a way to start with. It's basic, but it's not dumbed down at all. Frequency came next, and the what is it? The power of personal vibration. So that's all about working with your energy and your home frequency, and regulating yourself like that. And then Leap of Perception came next, which is about the change from linear to holographic and spherical perception. And what's coming is that we're learning that attention is the most powerful thing we have. The ability to work with our attention, to focus it and direct it and hold it. Because, when we die, that focus of directing of the higher mind is how we move around, how we do things. Um, and it's the same here, but we're so fragmented. So in the end of Leap of Perception, I forget how many new attention skills that we're learning with the intuition age, you know, and it's really an important book. I think that one is very important. Um, And then transparency is like, okay, let's go ahead and clear the clutter. And then what happens when we become transparent? What happens if we have a transparent relationships where both people are transparent? Wow. Or groups, that we could work together and we're transparent. There's no ego involved anymore. It's just like a puzzle dropping into place. And then at the end of this, of transparency, I was going to maybe say something about this. I have a whole section on how transparency will transform reality, and going through lots of different like things like ethics and morality, religion, spirituality, learning and memory, money and possessions, blah, blah, blah. Um, so that we could get a feeling for how things might evolve and change. And I'm just working on a new book now, which I don't know when it'll be done exactly, but and I can't say anything about it, but it's the next chapter in this whole process.
Ooh, cannot wait to get my hands on that. Penny, can you tell us? We're having a little feedback here.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit, are there other additional ways that you can share with the community of how they might be able to work with you, whether it's one-on-one or do you do courses? Like, what are some of the other things? Not that the books aren't enough, because
Yeah,
certainly they are, but I'm sure
yeah.
after this too, this community is going to want to have some further engagement with you.
Yeah, right now while I'm writing, I am still doing private sessions, and there, you can go on my website under the mentoring section and find out all about that. And I've been doing a group called Spirit Talk, it's Spirit Talk Support Group. We've had 4 sessions, and we're starting another round of 4. It's every other week, and it's kind of like what we're doing tonight. It's a group coming together, talking about different topics, and it's on my website under the courses page if anybody's interested in it. The next one starts on the 7th.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
So
Beautiful. Well, we are so grateful for technology. We're so grateful for the feedback we're getting. Really, truly honored. So honored to have you here. Such a blessing to be with you and your presence and feel your expansive energy and love and transparency and all the myriad of divine frequencies that you've brought forth to share. And we're just grateful and honored, and would love to have you back at some point for sure.
Yes.
Perhaps when you're ready to reveal the big reveal.
Right. Right. Yeah. Oh, I'd love to come back. Yeah. There's certainly plenty to talk about.
Beautiful.
We have a couple more questions.
Oh,
Okay.
I don't know if you have time.
Yeah, sure. I've got plenty of time.
One question is from Linda, who asked, did you always know that you were going to be an author? Did you have a sense or feeling of that? Or were you led to it through your life? And through your life experiences. And as your books come to be, do you find more join your collective group?
I did not have any big sense of what I was going to do with my life as a child. Somebody said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it was back in the day where you could be a secretary, a teacher, a nurse, or whatever. And I said, I don't like any of those. I don't know. And then since I was a Leo, somebody said, well, Leos are leaders. And I said, okay, I'm going to be that. So anyway, but writing, I started writing in a little diary journal when I was probably 7, and kept writing, doing that. And I wrote really stupid poetry when I was like 12 or 13. And but I didn't think about books until much later. But then I found out several of my past lives, and in those I had written lots of books, and I even found out the name of all the books, and I actually got some of the books, and they are amazingly parallel to my own journals. So I was like, it just it's like
I
a
just
big
got goosebumps.
continuum, keeps rolling along, right? Just keep reinventing the information age to age, I guess.
Awesome. Anything you could share about dream work or how we can begin working with our dreams?
Yeah, I have several books on dreams too. I have an ebook called Be the Dreamer, Not the Dream, which is it's like one of these books that you have on the table, but it's all about dreams. Um, well, I mean, there's so much about it. I think you have to assume that dreams are actually real. You are going out and doing those things at night. You're going through different frequencies of consciousness, and it's all about tuning in with your own growth and evolution and finding out things you want to work on and things you are doing. And so I always think it's all real. And then there's an art form to interpreting the symbology. I talk about in the book about the dream zones. Like we're in the physical dream zone right now in this world. We're dreaming this. Our soul is dreaming this. And then there's the etheric, dream zone of the energy body. And then there's the lower emotional and higher emotional, so where like the astral plane, and then above that is the electromagnetic energy, really is the emotional body, and then above that is the lower mental and the upper mental, and the lower mental is fixed beliefs and fear ideas, and the upper is inspiration and intuition and guidance, and beyond that is the causal zone where the sense of purpose is lined up, and maybe the akashic records exist. But we travel through those frequencies at night and even during the day. You space out, you daydream, and we're accessing all that different kinds of data constantly. So I think it's interesting to think of it that way, because then your dreams become, I call it 24-hour consciousness. You're not, gone for half of the day, half of the day. Yeah. So, and of course, keeping a dream journal and being able to track them is so important. Otherwise, you're going to lose them in the morning.
Profound. Thank you so much for sharing that. Such a great perspective. And I think
I was just in a dream. Literally, I'm not kidding. As you were talking, I was like, I was going into the different layers. And I was like, wait a second, maybe we do want to be in that all day.
Well, it just gives you the idea that you can shift your physical reality about as easily as you can shift your dream realities.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. Penny, any suggestions on remembering our dreams?
Well, have a real desire, and you might ask to dream about a certain thing. You might meditate a little, go into like an imaginary dream temple, lay down on the bed, and have the dream priests and priestesses come and help you align yourself and that you're going to go to a higher realm and get what the knowledge you need next, and then go to sleep.
I love that. We're all going to try that this evening. Penny, this has been such an incredible conversation. We are beyond grateful, and I can just feel the energy buzzing and, just waves of gratitude and appreciation for this conversation. So we'll definitely have to do a part 2.
Yes, we promise to have honed in on our technology skills prior to the part 2.
That's all par for the course. So where do we find out about this tea that you're drinking?
Well, you have a gift of the tea awaiting you for this weekend.
Okay.
But if one were to desire the combination, it's not dialed into actual measurements. I like people to feel into their own, measurements. But on our website, on the Open to Transparency Unity website,
okay,
it talks about the actual blends. And I've blessed and blended a big jar of it for you, and you will be receiving.
Oh, thank you.
This weekend. And so hopefully you like it.
Yummy. It looks good. It looks like wine, so I probably would like it.
It's flower wine.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, thank you both. And thank everybody who came. I appreciate the questions.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Blessings.
So much love to you and to the entire community. Thank you so much for You want to press the, sorry, the feedback is, thank you so much for
There we go.
putting up with the technological issues and for holding such beautiful space. And we so appreciate and are so grateful for all of you being here and continuing to co-create in this community of light, this community of transparency, discovering more about all the beautiful way sharers such as Penny that are out there, trailblazing, system busting, and opening our hearts to higher levels of consciousness. We look forward to. We're going to begin to have these beautiful podcasts on a more regular basis. So stay tuned. And anything else we want to share?
We have an event coming up
on
yes. July 17th, which is an astro energy forecast and guided transmission. So that should be a lot of fun. So we hope you all will join us.
Sounds good.
Yes, there are lots of topics that the various councils of light are wanting to bring forth. So we're going to have to pick a topic out of the hat and land on one. But it should be exciting. And again, the details of that will be coming out. But Saturday, July 17th.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good.
So look forward to seeing you all then, if not sooner. And blessings for a beautiful weekend celebrating independence, freedom, and sovereignty.
Yes. Many blessings, everyone. Good night.